Good evening and welcome to the virtual open house for the SmartTrack Bloor-Lansdowne GO station. My name is Nil Coach and I work for Metrolinx. I'm the Senior Manager for Community Engagement with GO Expansion Stations in Toronto. And it's my pleasure to be your moderator for this evening's event. As you're looking at your screen, you're going to note that this event is being closed captioned. You can turn on the closed captioning by clicking on the CC icon, which is located on the bottom. The CC icon button located on the bottom right corner of your video player. We've scheduled this meeting to last about 1.5 hours. It'll start with some opening remarks from our special guests, Deputy Mayor Anna Bilow and MPP Marit Stiles. Deputy Mayor, would you like to give your opening remarks?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Pleasure to be here, and thank you for spending your evening with us. I thought it would be appropriate just to go back a little bit and remind everybody how we got here. Some of you have attended many meetings, have attended many advocacy efforts, have helped come together as a community to have this station. This started as part of our conversation of the Davenport Diamond when Metrolinx announced that they needed to do the Davenport Diamond. The community really wanted it to have it underground, and given that was not possible, we really wanted to make sure that this project was a project that was going to benefit the community as well, that it was going to be done in a way that it was not going to be just the bridge for the trains to go by, but that we would benefit and would be an enhancement for our community. That is why the guideway, it was important, connections were important, and the station was really important, because we always say we want to get on those trains as well. We don't want to see them just go by. So we worked hard as a community, and Metrolinx came to the table and did agree to many of the requests from the community. And today we're working on many of these initiatives, and tonight the meeting is about the station. You might be surprised to see it as a SmartTrack station, because we did have the minister a few years ago come and make the announcement of the station and some of these things that were going to come to the community. But fast forward, new provincial government, there were new financial agreements with the City of Toronto and new transit projects, and this station became a SmartTrack station. When we look at the initial maps of the SmartTrack, this was not a SmartTrack station. It came as a benefit from the Davenport Diamond, but today it is included in the plan for the SmartTrack station. So we're excited to be here today to bring this station to the community. The connections that you're going to see here that are going to be done at the same time as the station. Many of you had concerns because the Davenport Diamond was going to have the guideway, but many of the things that we had requested and were committed to us were not part of that tender. And it's good to see the station now coming forward. Some of those connections are already included in here. So all I can say is that I'm looking forward to continue to work with you to ensure that this is a great project for our community and a great transit project that is going to help regional transit, city transit, and our local community as well, and to make sure that the connections that are going to enhance what we already have as a great jewel in our community to the West Toronto rail path, that are going to be a great addition to the community of multi-trail system here in our community, is completed and made available for the enjoyment of everybody. So looking forward to working with all of you, looking forward to working with the Metrolinx team and the city team that is here to make sure that that the vision that we had comes to a reality. So thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll turn it over to MPP Stiles for her opening remarks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I am very pleased to be here tonight, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining this session. I know it's a busy time of year for lots of people, so we really appreciate it. But this is an important meeting. As was mentioned before, I am your member of provincial parliament for Davenport, Marit Stiles, and maybe you're new to the area, but hopefully we've met at some point, certainly over the last few weeks. I want to thank Deputy Mayor Bailau for taking us through some of that history. It was really important to understand some of the context for this. I was a community member during some of those conversations, and then I became the trustee and now the MPP for the area. And one thing I'll say is our community is defined by trains, by rings. It is part of our daily lives. And so we know here in Davenport, all too well, the value and the importance of those rails, but we also know that our families will be impacted in very significant ways when construction begins. And we want to ensure that whatever is developed here is going to serve not only the needs of, obviously our city, other communities, but also this neighborhood. Over the last few months, my team of volunteers and I have been going door to door in your neighborhood, sharing what information we had about the station and starting to collect questions and concerns and ideas as well. And we've been passing them along to Metrolinx and to city staff. And we've also met with a number of groups that have formed around development in the area. Some of you are probably involved in that. More specifically, though, we've also met with some folks who are very interested in this specific project. And so I want to thank all of you, but a big shout out to Noah and Mark, who have been raising the alarm bells, so to speak, about concerns that folks who are really close to the rails have. And they've been advocating really at all levels of government to see if those concerns could be addressed. I also want to quickly share that I met a couple of weeks ago with the CEO of Metrolinx, Phil Verster, and some of the staff that are here tonight to again raise some of those questions directly that are coming from our community, and also to help, I hope, inform and prepare Metrolinx for some of the issues that might arise this evening, and they can maybe head off some of the questions and give you the information that you're really hungry for. There is definitely some follow-up correspondence that we are going to continue to share on my website and in Facebook groups around that conversation. So keep an eye out for that. But briefly, I mean, what I'm hearing from people in the community is we want more details on transparency and accountability. We want better communication. We want noise walls, barriers, not just from the sound perspective or privacy, but also potential pollution. We want fair integration with the TTC. We want accessibility. We have concerns about the possibility of overnight construction. I've heard a lot of that from folks, partly because of the experience in the Davenport Diamond right now. We want pedestrian cycling infrastructure links and bells. Bells is going to be an issue, as I mentioned earlier, and I was really happy just before this meeting to hear that we are going to be joined, I gather, by some folks who are potentially working on this pilot project we've asked for, but we haven't actually seen that start yet. So we're interested to hear where that's at. And we're also interested in the timing of electrification, because if in fact the electrification doesn't start when the new station opens and we see more and more trains coming through, then we know that that means dirty diesel coming through our community and resulting in more air pollution. And so I know people here have questions about that. Anyways, I raise all of this to say we are stronger working together. My office is going to be attending all these meetings. We have opportunities to feed in information and get answers. So please keep in touch with my office. You can reach me on my website. And my main staff person working on this will be at all the meetings. His name is Peter Gaddy. I'm excited about the potential here, I got to tell you. But we do need to stay on top of it. And we need to work at all levels of government to support the community. So thank you, Nilgün, and everybody who's here tonight. We're looking forward to great things coming out of this project.
Thank you, MPP Stiles, and to the Deputy Mayor. Appreciate both of you taking the time to join us this evening. And thank you to all the participants who've logged on and taken a little bit of time away from your busy schedule to join us to learn more about the SmartTrack Bloor-Lansdowne GO station. Before we get going, I want to start off with a land acknowledgement. So we acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. It is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Thank you. Another thing that we like to do to start off our meetings here is reflect on a safety moment. I think both Metrolinx and the City of Toronto take safety very seriously. So today I thought we would look at some tips related to walking safely in the winter. And admittedly, and maybe selfishly, I picked this one because I had quite a slippery walk home from the office yesterday. Can you make that full screen so I can read the slide, please? So one thing you want to do is be careful when walking on snow and ice. You want to make sure to look before you step. Make sure you're wearing proper non-slip footwear. Take shorter steps or shuffle for stability. I believe that is actually called the penguin shuffle. That's a scientific term. Use handrails, avoid slippery surfaces, and clear snow and ice from your pathways, sidewalks, and driveways. I'm sure people, everyday people, but also people with mobility issues and baby strollers would really appreciate that as well. So we're about to move to the presentation. Can I have the next slide, please? We're about to move to the presentation, followed by a question and answer session. But first, some quick guidance for you. You'll be able to follow along with the presentation on your screen, but you can also click on the presentation materials link just below the video player and download this slide deck for your later reference. If you scroll down, you're going to see that there's been a number of submitted written questions. Take a minute and read through those questions and upvote any of the questions that you'd like to see answered. You know, the old adage that great minds think alike. So before you ask a question, see if it's already been asked. And if so, upvote it instead, because we're going to take those questions in the order of most votes. We also have a way for you to ask questions verbally if you prefer. So if you want to ask a live question, you can join the Zoom room. When the time comes after the presentation, you can click on the yellow Join Zoom button. My colleague, Colin Burns, will be moderating the Zoom room. So Colin will recognize you when you raise your hand, and he'll turn on your microphone when it's your turn to ask a question. If you're asking a question, we ask that you ask only one question at a time and keep your questions brief so we can give as many people as possible a chance to participate. If there's time, we'll always circle back for a second round of questions. You can also write out additional questions on the Engage page at any time during the meeting and after the meeting as well. We might not get to all the questions during the meeting, but we will respond to all the written submissions on the Engage page afterwards. And just a reminder, if you've just joined us, this meeting is being closed captioned. So you can turn on the closed captioning by clicking on the CC icon, which is located on the video player. Can I have the next slide, please? So then the purpose of tonight's open house is to update the community about the SmartTrack Station Program, to continue to engage with the community, and we want to share some early detailed design concepts about the SmartTrack Bloor-Lansdowne GO station in particular. One thing I want to add is that we do also have staff here to speak and provide an update on the Up Express bell ringing cessation pilot project. So once we get through the SmartTrack slide deck, I will turn it over for an update on the bell ringing cessation pilot for Up Express, and then we'll move to the question and answer period. So we're almost there, but I want to introduce our panel. Can I have like a panelist view, please? So I'll start with the City of Toronto. From the City of Toronto, we have David Bruto, Senior Project Manager with the Transit Expansion Office. We have Greg Tokars, Program Manager, Transit Implementation, City Planning. Dan Nicholson, Manager of Community Planning, West Section, which includes Davenport. Anthony Irving, who's the Manager of Stakeholder and Community Relations with the Transit Expansion Office. From Metrolinx, Gretel Green, Manager of Environmental Programs and Assessment. Gulen Mojadidi, Manager, Stations Capital Delivery. Joyce Young, SmartTrack Stations Program Sponsor. Parambir Laki, Manager of Regional Express Rail Fleet Maintenance Support. Gurpreet Bhola, Manager of Safety Audit and Regulatory Affairs. And myself, Nil Ganercoach, Senior Manager for Community Engagement, GO Expansion, and also your moderator tonight. And last but not least, we have our technical advisors on the line. MJ Raymond from 4T, Senior Project Manager, and Mary Farrell, also a Senior Project Manager. So we have a lot of people on the line here to answer your questions, but let's get to the presentation. So Anthony, do you want to take it away?
Sure, thank you, Nilgan. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Anthony Irving. I'm in the Transit Expansion Office at the City of Toronto. I wanted to walk you quickly through the SmartTrack Stations program, and then we'll dive right into the details of Bloor-Lansdowne station. Next slide, please. SmartTrack Stations program will improve transportation choices within Toronto by leveraging existing transit infrastructure to serve more people. Combined with GO expansion, SmartTrack will transform heavy rail infrastructure in Toronto from a regional commuter service into an urban rapid transit network. Next slide, please. With 5 additional stations, all-day two-way service, increased frequency, and quieter, faster trains, SmartTrack will expand transit access for residents traveling within and beyond the city. Another benefit is the network effect and the opportunities that come with a strong, more flexible transit system with seamless connections across neighborhoods and communities, more frequent service, and more new stations like SmartTrack stations. SmartTrack stations, along with important transit projects such as Ontario Line, Eglinton Crosstown, Finch LRT, will increase transit users' choices and provide more reliable route options that meet travel needs from work to shopping, recreation, and social trips. Next slide, please. SmartTrack will provide access to fast, safe, and reliable transit and offer earlier transit expansion solutions, while the province's subway program, like the Ontario Line, Scarborough Subway Extension, Eglinton West Extension, and the Yonge North Subway Extension, is constructed. Service improvements from SmartTrack stations will provide walkable access to rail service for 83,000 residents and 91,000 jobs. The 5 new stations are projected to bring approximately 110,000 new daily riders by 2031 to the network and reduce congestion on the roads and emissions throughout the region. Next slide, please. And the program history, so going back to October 2019, as part of the Transit Partnership Agreement between the City of Toronto and Ontario, we agreed to advance the SmartTrack Stations program. Back in February earlier this year, Toronto City Council approved the updated terms to arrange an agreement in principle to advance the program. And then back in August, there was a revised agreement in principle endorsing the 5 new stations. And right now, today, procurement is underway, and we will be awarding construction contracts in 2022, with the stations being open for service by 2026. Next slide, please. And now I'm going to hand this over to my colleague Gulam, who will be able to go into detail on the actual station.
Thank you, Anthony. So I'll be walking you through Bloor-Lansdowne station a little more closely. So next slide, please. Thank you. Bloor-Lansdowne station will be built on the existing Berry corridor between Caledonia and the future Spadina Front GO stations. The station will be serviced by Berry corridor trains. It will be situated on the Bloor Street, south side of the street between St. Helens Avenue and the railway corridor. Potential transit connections to the station will be the TTC's 300 Bloor-Danforth night bus. For the 7 Lansdowne bus, the station is also in close proximity of the existing TTC's Lansdowne subway station. There will be a connection to the station through a multi-use path and Wade Avenue. Next slide, please. These 2 pictures are showing the current conditions of the site. Picture on the left is showing Bloor Street facing west. On the left side of this picture, we can see the gray-orange construction trailer, which is currently situated in the Valley Village site. On the right side of the picture is the Bloor Street rail bridge. Currently, work is ongoing on this bridge by the Davenport Grade Separation Project. Picture on the right is showing the corridor from Bloor Street facing southwards. In the future, the corridor will have 2 tracks so as to provide two-way all-day service along Berry Corridor. Next slide, please. Thank you. Some of the features of the station include main station entrance. This entrance is going to be situated on the southeast quadrant of Corridor and Bloor Street. We will be constructing a multi-use path along with a bridge over Bloor Street, which will connect to the Davenport Diamond Greenway. The bridge can be seen in this rendering going over Bloor Street. We will also have multiple bike parking stations, as well as accessible pickup and drop-off area. Next slide. Thank you. In this rendering, we can see an overview of the future station and platform looking south from Bloor Street. We see the 2 side platforms with stairs and elevators to the pedestrian tunnel connecting the 2 platforms, as well as platform shelters, public seating area, green space, and the multi-use path. Dora Avenue and Sterling entrances are shown on the south end of the platforms. The station is being designed to protect for future development. Next slide, please. This slide is showing a plan view of the project area. From the right to left, we can see the multi-use path, which will run further south to connect to West Toronto Rail Path. Platforms are shown in aqua color. On the bottom right of the page, we have the pedestrian access from Sterling Avenue. On the bottom right and top right of the page, we see potential on-street accessible drop-off and pickup areas. On Dora Avenue, we have the access to the station and multi-use path, as well as bike parking and station services building. Moving north towards Bloor Street, we see the main station entrance along with bike parking and pedestrian tunnel. Please note that the final location of this tunnel is currently being studied. The multi-use path will cross over Bloor Street, as mentioned before, and will run further north to connect with Davenport Greenway at Wade Avenue. Next slide, please. This slide is showing a map of the local multi-use paths and cycling infrastructure. As shown in the dashed mustard yellow in the center of the page, we will construct this section of the multi-use path from Davenport Greenway southwards. As part of the project, we will construct the path from Wade Avenue to the south end of the platforms. King Liberty SmartTrack Station Project will construct the south leg of this multi-use path to connect with the West Toronto Rail Path. As previously mentioned, there will be an access point to the multi-use path from Dora Avenue. Next slide, please. So at this point, I'll pass on the presentation to my colleague, Gretel.
Thanks, Guam.
Thank you.
Hi, so I'm Gretel Greening, and I work in the environmental section for Metrolinx. I'm just going to go over a few slides to talk about our environmental due diligence. The environmental assessment for the SmartTrack Bloor-Lansdowne GO station was completed in 2018 through the Environmental Project Report Addendum process in accordance with the Ontario Regulation 230-108, which is called a TPAP, Transit Project Assessment Process. During the environmental assessment phase of public and stakeholder consultation and engagement, over 630 people attended 6 public meetings and 110 people attended 10 stakeholder advisory group meetings, comprised of residents and representatives from a broad range of stakeholder interests, including community, neighborhood, business institutions. In addition to these meetings, the City of Toronto and Metrolinx maintain project websites and encourage public and stakeholder input via email and phone. As we enter into this new phase of the project, our engagement efforts continue with these early engagements that we're doing with the town halls. Environmental commitments identified in the EPR addendum and those outlined in subsequent due diligence studies are and will be addressed through the design and construction phases. Site-specific due diligence will include completion of a heritage impact assessment for a heritage property recently identified by the city on St. Helens Avenue to assess impacts and identify appropriate mitigation measures for construction. As well, we're also completing an updated tree inventory to match the current design. Next slide, please. Everybody's favorite topic, Noise, vibration, and air quality impacts from the operations and proposed project were assessed in the environmental assessment. Before construction starts, the contractor will develop construction assessment and management plans, which identify sensitive receivers and zones of influence for the project throughout the project. Activities will be identified through construction-specific assessments that could impact noise, vibration, and air quality on the receivers. These reports will include construction air quality management plans and construction noise and vibration management plans. The project will follow applicable laws, standards, and Metrolinx guidelines to set limits for noise, such as noise exposure limits. During construction, best management practices include items such as the use of the most efficient equipment and tools to ensure good working order, adhere to applicable laws, standards, and guidelines, installation of erosion and sediment controls, to ensure that dust is monitored and maintained. You'll see things such as street sweepers, water trucks, entrance mud mats that hopefully will be well maintained to keep things clean. Monitoring, there will be continuous and simultaneous monitoring for air quality and noise during construction when work is happening around sensitive receivers. Metrolinx does receive real-time email alerts for any exceedances of air quality and noise. Operations. So during operations, the EA did identify that there will be a slightly raised contamination concentration, less than 1% from background for air quality due to acceleration, deceleration, and total travel times throughout the station. For noise and vibration, with the electrified trains, the station is not anticipated to experience any increase in noise levels. Vibration levels during operations are generally expected to decrease due to the decrease in train pass-by speeds due to stopping by the stations. Incorporating noise mitigations that were identified through other EAs are being assessed at this time. And we are also, and we'll talk about later, but interim diesel train conditions are being assessed and mitigation implemented where feasible. And for the site-specific, a portion of the privacy wall on the west side of the GO rail corridor will be removed to facilitate construction. When works are completed, a new noise wall will be constructed, and design will ensure that the current requirements for noise mitigation, including absorption, are incorporated into that noise wall. The height of that wall will be based on the spatial relationship and assessments on site. Next slide, please. Trees, they're always my favorite. A 2018 tree inventory plan was identified for tree removals and injuries, which would be required to accommodate the new station associated construction works. For removals. An updated arborist report will be completed that will refine tree impacts based on the current station design. You may have noticed that trees located in the Metrolinx rail corridor in this area have already been removed, partially for early works and partially for the station. Native trees have already been compensated for per the Metrolinx vegetation guide. Tree removals and injury permits will be obtained from the City of Toronto for all affected private and city-owned trees. Trees adjacent to construction activities will be protected with tree hoarding. Compensation for all removed trees, replanting of new native trees will occur in accordance with the City of Toronto bylaws and also the Metrolinx vegetation guide. Landscape plans will be developed as design progresses. Replanting of private tree removals will be explored with property owners. And the next slide. And traffic, another favorite for everyone. During construction, to address traffic impacts during construction, a traffic management plan will be prepared and carried out during the construction period. The traffic management plan will include measures such as advanced closures, notifications, detour and advisory signage, maintaining traffic control and flagging, issuance of notices to adjacent residents for any changes to traffic patterns, any impacts. Ensuring all residential and commercial properties remain accessible is really a priority of Metrolinx. We take that pretty seriously. Traffic management measures will be continuously monitored during construction activities and adjusted as necessary. Operations. The 2018 Transportation and Traffic Impact Analysis indicated the station generated traffic has the potential to impact some intersections near the station. The station does not include parking spaces. So those traffic impacts should be minimal. Limited on-street designated pickup drop-off for regular and accessible vehicles is being explored along Sterling Road in St. Helens. I'm now turning over the presentation to Pariam Veer, who has all the bells and whistles. That was funny as a joke.
Thanks. I laughed. I actually did laugh. Hi, everyone. So regarding the Bell Station project, It is still ongoing. What we have done so far is we actually went out and did a risk assessment of the station platform and how the bells affect our passengers and persons on the station. Since this is a very critical and safety critical intersection between our passenger and the trains, we want to ensure that any solution that we provide not only goes above and beyond what we currently have, but is also safe when it's implemented. Due to this, from the assessments that we have done, we have updated our internal risk matrix, which show that we have a few items or risk areas that were identified that we need to address with any possible solution that we move forward with. We're continuing to do our assessment. We're continuing to move forward with this project, but the current timelines, we're not able to give them because we need to know how we can address these safety issues prior to providing any sort of solution. That's it.
Hi, sorry about that. I had a bit of delay getting unmuted. Thank you, Paramveer. Appreciate that. So we're going to wrap up the presentation portion of this evening's open house. On the screen, you're going to see some contact information. So again, this is a primarily partnership between the City of Toronto and Metrolinx. From the Metrolinx end, you have the Toronto West Community Relations Office. Our email and phone number is listed there. I would strongly suggest that you subscribe to our Toronto West weekly newsletter. E-Blast is what we call it. You can do that by going to metrolinx.com/subscribe. And that's the best way probably to keep up to date about things that are going in Toronto West, but in particular around the SmartTrack station, the Bloor-Lansdowne station, and other goings on in the Davenport riding. This Engage page is going to remain up, so you can always return to this page to watch the open house recording, to look at the answers to the questions that were submitted, etc. And we do have also our metrolinx.com/SmartTrack page where you'll find kind of more background information about the SmartTrack GO stations. From the City of Toronto's perspective, you also have the Transit in Toronto email and phone number, and the city's SmartTrack website as well, which is www.toronto.ca/SmartTrack. There you're going to find probably less station-specific information and more information about the larger SmartTrack Stations Program. Regardless, there's links between the Metrolinx page and the city's page. So if you're visiting one, you should be able to easily link to the other and vice versa. Either one of those pages are going to navigate you to the information you're looking for. So thank you. So we are about to move to the question and answer portion of this open house. Again, this is a good time to join the Zoom room. If you want to join the Zoom room and ask questions in the chat or by voice, my colleague Colin is in there moderating. Click on the yellow Zoom room button, join Zoom button, to join the Zoom room. Again, once you're in there, if you raise your hand, Colin will call upon you and unmute your microphone and you can ask your question. But first, let's take some of the written questions that were submitted beforehand. So the first question I have is for Gulam. And there's two questions asking this, so I'm going to bundle them together. And it's about access to, actually, they're a little different, so let me space them out. First question is access to TTC Lansdowne subway station. How will a convenient and seamless pedestrian connection be implemented to the nearby TTC Lansdowne subway station?
Thank you for that question. So the Bloor-Lansdowne station, its scope of work includes the multi-use path that I mentioned earlier, that connects to the Davenport Diamond Greenway by a bridge over Bloor Street West. So the multi-use path will also have access to Wade Avenue, which will connect you to Lansdowne subway station.
Thank you. And there's a second question here related to that, Gulam. And it's about, will there be any sort of allotment made in the current construction for potential underground connection to Lansdowne Station, perhaps even via future residential construction that was likely to come on the north side of Bloor.
At this point, as part of our project, there is no underground connection plan for the SmartTrack Station project. The access we have considered is the multi-use path up to Wade Avenue.
Thank you, Guillaume. Actually, stay on the line there because I think this next question is for you. And there's a few questions kind of asking the same thing, and it's related to the multi-use path. Pedestrian and cycling connectivity and access to the West Toronto Rail Path. So will a multi-use path connecting north to the Davenport Diamond Greenway and south to Dundas and the West Toronto Rail Path extension be built concurrently with the station?
So we will be concurrently constructing the station and the multi-use pad within our station limits, and then further north to Wade Avenue, which will connect to the Davenport Diamond Greenway. On the south in King Liberty Station, which has a similar construction timeline, they will be constructing the south leg of that multi-use path, which will connect to Dundas and West Toronto Rail Path.
Thanks, Guillaume. The second half of the question I want to direct to Joyce in our sponsors office. Joyce, we have a couple questions here about, so I'll read them both for you. Will there also be pedestrian and cycling connections west across the tracks to Sterling Road? And if you give me a minute to scroll, what are the plans for access to Sterling Road? Given the development on Sterling Road, I think it would be important to provide a direct access to Sterling Road for both directions of travel on the platform. And you're muted, Joyce.
Sorry, at least it's got to happen at least once a day, right? So I'm going to answer the first part of the question first. So there is plan for a pedestrian tunnel between the east and the west platform. We're currently studying the location of, or finalizing the location with the City of Toronto staff, and we're looking to probably have that done by early 2022. So, you know, for us to locate the tunnel, there is specific sort of technical requirements and customer experience factors that, you know, that are in place. So we'll continue to work with City of Toronto to finalize the location. Now, to the second part of the question, there is currently actually a pedestrian access from Sterling Road. So if you want to refer back to slide number 16, you see a path there. I don't know if you can pull up slide number 13 or 16, sorry. If not, it's, so when you actually go back to the Metrolinx, one more slide up, please, Vince, sorry. Yeah, so you'll see on the bottom of that diagram, there is a pedestrian path that's south of the, well, I guess planned south of the corridor, so east of the corridor. And I don't know if you can point to it. It's closer to the right side of the diagram.
So the bottom right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got some green dots on it.
Mm-hmm. We might not be able to point to it, Joyce, but on your bottom right of your screen, so at Sterling on the west, at the south end of the station on the west side of the tracks, at Sterling, there will be a station access point there.
That's correct. Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, next question. Sorry, I've lost my mouse here. Let me just scroll back up. Gretel, the next question is for you. It is about electrification. And again, this is asked a few times, so I'm going to bundle a couple questions together. The first one is electrification. Will the station be built in accordance with electrification of the Barrie line? And let me get the second question. Will trains be efficient, quiet, electric, or noisy, dirty diesel? what trains will run on this and what sort of DB rating?
So those are good questions. And I wish I could just say, yes, electrification comes tomorrow. Electrification is a part of the GO expansion project, and it will be on the Barrie line, and this station is holding for that electrification. The contract for that project is going to be awarded in 2022. And once a contractor is on board, once we select a contractor, we will work with them to determine a schedule for construction and electrification. It's a huge project. Approximately 200 kilometers of new track will be installed as part of that project. Over 600 kilometers of track will be electrified as well. So construction is supposed to start in 2022 or in early 2023 and is expected to wrap up by 2032. So it's coming. In the meantime, to help mitigate noise impacts, because we do know that those dirty diesels are loud, and to help mitigate that noise impact around the stations and across the networks, Metrolinx is committed to installing exhaust noise silencers on existing and future Metrolinx diesel locomotives, which will decrease the sound from the trains by 3 dB. And 3 dB is the first sort of decibel measurement that you can notice. So when you see that decrease, it's something you actually will be able to tell that they've been made quieter. There's a total of 56 locomotives right now on our lines that require this modification. 30 have been completed as of October of 2021, with approximately 3 modified per month. We estimate that all 56 will be completed by the end of the third quarter of 2022. So before the station's opened. We are working, or I guess maybe when it opens, I'm not sure. We are working on reducing engine idling as well, and improvements to the tracks and switches to reduce vibration and noise. Installation of ballast mats to reduce vibration is also being explored. So we take it seriously, we're working on it, and we're working on that interim solution.
Thanks, Gretel. The next question, I think, is for MJ, our technical advisor. MJ, this is about a provision of a third track. So much of the northern section of the Barrie corridor has been built for the provision of a third track for future express service, for example, at Rutherford GO station. Will this station have a provision for a future third track, even if it passes the station without a platform?
Thanks, Nilgan. Provision for third track? No, there is no provision for third track planned at Bloor-Lansdowne SmartTrack Station, as the adjacent Davenport Diamond Gate separation project is not built wide enough to accommodate more than 2 tracks. So we are pretty much restricted at Bloor Station to have maximum 2 tracks. Also, Metrolinx is planning to operate all the trains operating on Barrie line will be stopping at Bloor Station. So there is no provision for or a third track required for allowing train to bypass the station.
There's no, yeah. So the plan is that trains won't bypass the station, so it would make sense to have the third track, and the grade separation unfortunately includes it.
That's correct.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to take a couple more questions written and then we'll move to the Zoom room. So what date will this station be functional? Gulam, can I give that one to you?
Of course, thank you. So we're currently in the procurement stages of the project, and we'll be starting construction end of next year. We anticipate that construction will complete by end of 2025, and we'll start putting the station in service in 2026.
I know we had a quick update from Veer, but I'm going to ask this question again, and I think sometimes it doesn't help to reiterate. So it's about the train bells at the station. And so again, there was a question about updating on the bell ringing cessation pilot, which I think you've given that. But there's also like, what alternatives to bell ringing from the trains are being explored by Metrolinx? Again, there's a concern about the increased train traffic causing disruption from the bell ringing.
Okay, thanks, Nilgan. So we're exploring multiple solutions. One of those solutions was even using artificial intelligence. But every single solution, like, there's positives and negatives to it. And what we're realizing is it's not just putting a solution out there and turning off the bells. The consequences of this could be someone dying if they can't hear it, if they can't see it. We want to make sure that people who have disabilities will be able to take advantage of this, because right now with the bells, people who have hearing impairments, they can't hear, and it's hard on them. So because of all this, like I said before, we're actually conducting assessments right now to see what our requirements are. So we're building out the correct requirements for our stations for Canada. And this is something new within Canada. So we're treading forward, but we're treading very carefully because we want to make sure that we provide a safe environment for everybody that uses the stations and uses the service.
And Premier, I think as we move forward, what I can do is work with you as the Senior Community Engagement Manager to make sure that the community stays up to date as the pilot progresses. And I will work with both the MPP and the Deputy Mayor's office to make sure those updates come forward as the pilot progresses as well.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask one more question because I think it's one that a lot of people want to hear, and then we'll move to the Zoom room. So, Gretel, this question is for you, and it's about noise barrier walls. What are the plans for installation of a noise barrier wall along St. Helens Avenue between the track platforms and the residents spanning Door Avenue to Bloor? Considering the timeline for electrification that has been delayed to after the station is scheduled for completion, there will be idling diesel trains next to these residences.
So that's a great question, and I think I sort of kind of goes along with the electrification question we asked before. So a noise impact assessment was completed for the Bloor-Lansdowne station, which identified the noise impacts of electrified trains to be under a 5 dBA, which does not warrant the need for noise mitigation along the east side of the rail corridor. Recognizing that we are now in an interim position, and we've kind of already gone over all the things we're going to be doing in the meantime to mitigate noise, to reduce that to 3 dB with the diesel engines and noise silencers, and that's going to be done by 2022, as well as all those additional things. We also are looking at the existing barrier at the west platform. I said in the due diligence is going to be removed for construction. It really isn't a noise barrier actually, and we are committed to replacing that with a noise wall that meets our standards for absorption, etc. And given the delay in electrification, additional noise barriers on the east side of the corridor are currently being explored and assessed. The results of that will be communicated to residents once those assessments are completed, to talk about the interim conditions.
Okay, so the assessment for the east side of the trek is currently underway, and we'll have to report back on that. Right,
and that has to do, that's based on distances and heights. Like those are taller buildings, and will those noise barriers actually mitigate noise? So that'll be assessed and is actually is underway now.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to check in with my colleague in the Zoom room. Colin, are you there?
I'm here, Nolan.
Do we have any raised hands in the Zoom room or any written out questions in there?
We do actually. Give me 1 second. We just got one. We have a question from Mark. Just give me 1 second. I'll unmute Mark.
Oh, hi, thanks. I have a bunch of questions, but I'll start with just one. Thanks for the presentation, first of all. On the multi-use trail, it was nice to see it drawn in for the first time. I think it's the first time we've seen it actually rendered. So that was encouraging. A couple questions regarding that, and then if other people ask, I would love to jump back in later on with some other questions. But on the multi-use trail, who is going to build it? That wasn't clear to me. Who's responsible for funding the construction of that trail? So that's question one related to the trail. Second question, will it be open, or can you commit to it opening the day the station opens, is the second question. And third question, very encouraged to hear that the trail is viewed as a critical connection point for people transferring between the TTC and the SmartTrack station, which I think is part of the idea of building the SmartTrack station there. So I'm wondering what Metrolinx is thinking about in terms of improving that whole corridor of, across the multi-use trail along Wade, because it's not necessarily a clear-cut route right now, and I think a lot of pedestrian and commuter enhancements could be made to really make that a pleasing connection, thinking about all seasons in the future. That might be getting ahead of things, but if you could answer those two things related to the multi-use trail, I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark. You had a couple of questions here, so I'm going to try to direct them accordingly. So I think the first one was about how it's being delivered and funded. Joyce, can you answer that question?
Yes, I can. So the multi-use paths are being funded by Metrolinx, but in collaboration with the City of Toronto, as far as design is concerned, because this design of the station is directly adjacent to it, but it's funded and delivered by Metrolinx at the same time with the SmartTrack station.
Thank you. And Ghulam, you mentioned the piece about how it's being delivered. So I know we're delivering it concurrently. The question was about committing to it being, open and operational on day one of the station. I'm not sure if you have any comments about that.
So it will be operational as when we hand over, or we put the station in service. The multi-use path will be in service as well.
Thank you. And your third question about kind of improving the connection from like what kind of improvements exist around Wade Avenue, for example. I'm not sure if maybe that's something the city can take Anna, I see you'd like to, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
I'll take that one. So we've actually approved already a development at 77 Wade that the city secured a connection in there. So it's part of their dedication to the city. So we've secured a connection in there as part of that project.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I appreciate that. Thank you. Is there another question in the Zoom room, Colin?
There are not any other questions.
That's great. We still have quite a few questions we'll go back and forth. We'll come back. I'm going to come back to the written questions. This one I think is for Gretel. Let me just check here. Yes, Gretel, 284 St. Helens. Some residential units at 284 St. Helens will directly be facing the station to the south, and some will be facing the platform to the east. What is the design plan to ensure noise, safety, and privacy for these neighbors? Will the public have direct access to 284 St. Helens?
Good question, and Ghulam, feel free to jump in after I'm done. The public will not have direct access to 284 St. Helen from the platform, I don't think. The east platform access will be from Dora Avenue, and a retaining wall with a fence above will be installed along the rail corridor, east side of the platform and east of the MUP, to ensure no passengers enter private property from the platform. I think that's.
Thank you. Ghulam, this question is for you, and it's about overnight construction. What is the current plan to minimize overnight construction? We hope that given the negative experience of local residents with excessive overnight construction on the Davenport Diamond, that Metrolinx will find a way to minimize overnight construction on this coming project.
That's a great question. Thank you for the question. As you know, the Bloor-Lansdowne GO station will be built on a busy railway corridor. And therefore, there are significant portions of the work that has to happen overnight when there are no service on the corridor. So those works will take place on the evenings, weekends, and overnight as well. When we have to construct at nighttime, crews do practice noise mitigation tactics as much as possible. Nearby residents and businesses will be informed when we're working overnight or we have weekend works that are going to be undertaken. I see that the MPP has her hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, MPP.
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. I wanted you to continue, but I did want to talk about this because I think so I guess I'll jump in, but you may have more to say. I I know that the experience of the community in the Davenport Diamond part of this project has been that, overnight construction was really a problem for a lot of people. And when community organized and did phoning campaigns and petitions and said, no, we don't want to have overnight, all night, all the time, Metrolinx backed away. But then, a few hundred feet up again, and we have overnight construction again. So I think what the community is actually asking is, like, we do understand that there's going to be some disruption, but is there any chance that we could get Metrolinx to agree to, not have construction that actually goes overnight, or that we have very restricted periods and that we have good warning about when that's going to take place?
So I think it's something that we can definitely take away MPP and work on and come back to you and the community. I don't want to, I don't know if there's anything you want to add, because I don't want to speak from a technical kind of construction component here.
I totally understand, MPP, where you're coming from, and obviously it's very impactful to a community when we're doing overnight construction works. It's noisy, vibration, there's light, and we take these things into consideration when we're deciding as to when certain aspects of the work will be completed. And we do as much as we can daytime, so as one, it's cheaper for us and easier for us. Our staff and our contractors don't want to work nighttime either. The issue really comes down to how much time can we really get, how much work can we really complete when we're doing it on daytime, when there are trains running by. And as a safety precaution, we have to stand out every time there's a train that passes by us. So we do take those very seriously. As well, we practice as much noise mitigation measures, like we have dampeners that we put in place to mitigate the noise impact on the community. But I think, as Nilgun mentioned, we will take this back and obviously work with the community, and we will provide as ample notice as we can to the community when we have night work happening.
Yeah, and definitely I can, I will circle back with your office as well. Yeah, go ahead, MPP.
Sorry, just one more quick thing, and I really do appreciate that. And I know that we've had lots of conversations about this. I do want to ask, in other projects that Metrolinx has engaged in, like in the Eglinton Crosstown, we've had it confirmed that there were efforts made, there were opportunities provided to residents who were neighboring there to ensure that there were window coverings and things like that that help mitigate some of the noise. So I just do hope that when we talk about all of this, we look at all of those opportunities, because it shouldn't just be those communities that are the most well off and noisiest, I guess is a good way to put it, that get some of those advantages. So I know we'll keep talking about it. I appreciate that. I appreciate we have this conversation happening now so that we can hopefully find some ways to mitigate the impact on our residents who've been going through a lot over the last couple of years and are, many of the people in our community are on the front lines of this pandemic, and a lot of people are shift workers. So we really do need to be careful and conscious of their needs and how disruptive that can be.
Yeah, I think there's some workable solutions in there in terms of things like the noise blocking curtains, things like earplugs, things like that. We can definitely have that conversation and work through some of those non-construction mitigation things as well. We can have that conversation as well. I'm just checking did the Deputy Mayor, did you want to say something? Are you okay? No, okay, sorry about that. I wasn't sure. Okay, I'm going to move to the next question then, if that's okay. The next question is about traffic on St. Helens, and I think, Mary, this is a good question to direct to you. Will there be a kiss and ride? Or in Metrolinx terminology, we would call that a pickup drop-off or a PUDO. So will there be a kiss and ride designed for this station? If so, how will traffic be managed on St. Helens for commuters who might be dropped off at this station by car?
Thanks for that question. The SmartTrack stations, including Bloor, are being designed to encourage people arriving there by active modes of transportation and from transferring from other modes of transit like the subway. That said, we do recognize that there will be some amount of people that will want to arrive and be dropped off by private auto. So what we're considering is on-street spots for those people to be dropped off, potentially on St. Helens or on Stirling. What that would mean would be that the on-street parking which exists there right now may be reduced to allow some of those spaces to be used for patrons to be dropped off. And we acknowledge, we understand that that there is a limited amount of parking for the community there currently. On the other hand, if we don't provide any area for private autos to drop off, it's very likely that some would drop off anyway and potentially block the street, and then that would cause a different kind of nuisance. So that's something really that we understand either way would certainly impact the community directly there on St. Helens and Stirling, and we really wanted to get some input from the community on that tonight.
So that might be a great segue to check in with Colin in the Zoom room. Colin, do you have any raised hands in the Zoom room?
We do. We have a few questions. 3 from chat and then follow up from Mark. So I'll read out the first question from Sylvan. Said, who will be responsible for the maintenance of the multi-use path, Metrolinx or the city?
That's a good question. Gulam or Joyce, do you have an answer to that?
I'll take it, I guess. Joyce, do you want to take it?
Yeah. So we're in discussions with the city. We haven't actually decided on the operations or maintenance. It will likely be a conversation happening next year with the city of Toronto.
Okay, so it's kind of to be determined, but it would likely be either Metrolinx or the city of Toronto, one of the two.
Right.
Colin?
All right, so the next question is from Pooja, and it's, will CN continue to have operational rights for the way freight and freight trains? This might be a follow-up question.
Is this a question for one of our technical advisors maybe, or Gulam? I'm not sure who can answer that question.
Unfortunately, I don't have a clear understanding of what the future plans are for CN in this corridor, so we would have to take that back.
Okay, so we'll have to follow up on that one. I would suggest either Colin, if you can copy and paste that question into the engage page questions, or if the person who has who's asked that question in the Zoom chat, if you write that question onto the engage page, then we can follow up with an answer for you at a later time after this meeting. And I apologize, we don't have that answer. Colin, do you want to ask the next question?
Yep. This question is from Delia, and it is, with Dora Ave being such a small street, are there plans to implement an entrance there?
And I think, Gulam, you can talk about the entrance, the station access from Dora.
Yep, so there is a plan to provide an entrance to the multi-use pad as well as the station from Dora Avenue.
Okay, so yes, there is a planned station access point from Dora.
Great, thank you. And then we have Mark with his hand up to follow up on his questions from before. So
Okay,
give me 1 second to unmute Mark.
Oh, great. Thanks so much. Let's see how many I can get in. First question is about electrification. With it sounds like it could be delayed by up to 6 years to 2032. So that's concerning to us, obviously, who are in the immediate airshed of this station. We're worried about trains idling as they pick up passengers, revving as they prepare to go uphill, heading northbound, especially up the new bridge that's being constructed. So I'm wondering if those there was an allusion to it before, but if those noise and air quality studies can be redone with that in mind, because that's very significant. Even if it was a 1-year delay, I'd still want those redone, because it's a significant amount of train traffic that currently passes through the neighborhood, and now will be stopping and also increasing in frequency. So I'm wondering if those can be redone, and also wondering if the existing studies can be shared with the neighborhood, just uploaded to the website, because the website is nice and accessible. So just a question there. And then related to that, if there is a delay in electrification, which it sounds like there will be, I think that strengthens the case for noise walls to be included on the east side of the tracks associated with this project. It's an additional expense that I'd love to do away with as a taxpayer. If they were electric trains, no problem. But if we're looking at up to 6 years of diesel trains, want to see those noise walls considered, please, and the study redone. So just a question there.
Can we just say noted? We're on our way. So as stated before, yes. So we and somebody else please jump in if they want, but we recognize that there is a delay, and I think 2032. That's when everything should be completed, and obviously there's going to be priority areas where we can't dictate where the contractor goes, but we'll be working to get that to you sooner than later. And I think we're looking at those assessments, we're looking at that study, and we will be sharing those results with the community as those assessments progress. So we hear you, and we're working on it.
Thank you, Gretel. I'm going to come back to the written submission questions, and actually this is a question for me. So it's about Metrolinx communication. I'll read it. This event has been poorly advertised, and most of the people in the neighborhood aren't even aware of the pending station construction and associated issues, such as bell ringing and the idling trains. What is the Metrolinx communication strategy that will ensure the neighborhood is well aware of what's happening? So I want to share with you we do have a communication strategy for the SmartTrack Stations Program. For public events and for construction notices, for example, we do Canada Post mailouts. The notices go within a 0.5 kilometer to 1 kilometer radius of the station site, and it's very dependent on the Canada Post delivery routes, which are not as logical to the layman's person. I'm sure they're very logical to Canada Post, but perhaps if you don't work for Canada Post, the postal routes seem a little illogical, but that's how they deliver the mail. So in the case, for example, of Bloor-Lansdowne, we sent out about 13,000 postcards in the neighborhood to residents and businesses. So we also canvass businesses as well. I alluded to this at the end of our presentation, but we do have the SmartTrack Stations Program webpage, www.metrolinx.com/SmartTrack. Alternatively, Toronto's website, toronto.ca/SmartTrack. We do provide regular tweets on the @Go Expansion Twitter, and then the city usually picks up and retweets on that. So we've been retweeting about these events, and also we just actually published a blog story. So I would recommend everyone go to the Metrolinx page and check out this blog story that was recently published about the SmartTrack Station Program. Also want to work very closely with our elected officials, so the Deputy Mayor's office and the MPP's office. We want to make sure that we get materials into their hands so that they can distribute them through their established avenues, their ward and writing updates, newsletters, web pages, things like that. And again, we do have those community office numbers that we can share again for you at the end of the presentation to see if you want to reach out to us directly by email or phone. I'll end by just saying that these are our very first set of engagements in this phase of the SmartTrack Station Program, and definitely open to any recommendations about preferred outreach and engagement methods. You can do that by either emailing torontowest@metrolinx.com, or you can leave your recommendations on the Engage page if you have some suggestions about how the community wants to be engaged. Okay. So I'm going to go back to Colin in the Zoom room. Colin, do we have any more questions?
Yeah, we have a couple. So we have a follow-up from Delia on the Dora Avenue question. She asks, how will the entrance be set up so that the public doesn't have to access 10 Dora Avenue? And how will traffic flow be affected?
Gulam, is that something you can answer?
For sure. So first of all, the project design is only at a 30% stage. We're going through a procurement process to hire a design builder who will further design and complete the design and construct the station, including Dora Avenue entrance. There's no access from our access point. Our access point will be on the south side of Dora Avenue. So there's no connection between our access point and 10 Dora Avenue. So we don't anticipate that the public will have or will need to access or will have access to 10 Dora to get to the station or to get to the multi-use pad.
Thank you. Colin?
Yeah, so there's another question from Sylvan. Has the possibility of building more than one tunnel been considered? There's value in having a tunnel at both the north and south ends of the platform for better access.
Joyce, can I hand that question to you?
Sure. Currently, based on the configuration of the station itself, and we have access from both sides of the corridor with side platforms. Right now, the way that we're looking at it's technically it only warrants one tunnel. Like I said before, we will continue to work with the City of Toronto to find the best location for this tunnel. We'll probably, like Nilgan was saying, that we're going to have, further conversations about this, in the new year. We can speak more on that then, but we're looking to work with City of Toronto, and we should have something probably a little bit more, finalized by then. We're looking at early 2022.
And I'm going to follow up with this question that was submitted during the call, and it's about whether people would be able to access the tunnel regardless of its location without payment for the train.
Yes, absolutely. I think the idea is to connect the community, so you can surely use the tunnel wherever it ends up, to connect both sides of the corridor.
Okay. Stay on the line, Joyce, because I think I have another question for you here, and it's about the proposed development for the Value Village site. Will there be a PUDA, which is a pickup drop-off located there, and will there be an entrance to the station at Bloor?
So the entrance to Bloor is what Gulam had shown before. The Kingset development is the developer that we're working with for 1319, the Valley Village site. So what they're doing with us is they're going to be providing the building shell as well as an access road. They're giving us permanent easement to that, and a PUDO and an accessible drop-off in the lower level where the garage is. So basically from that level, you can connect to the shell building and to the platform.
And if Dan from the city is on the line, this might be a good opportunity for you to jump in with an update on the development.
Thanks, Nilgan. Dan Nicholson, Manager Community Planning. So we've been working with the applicant on the development application on the site since they filed the application in December of 2020. So we reported out to Community Council in February. We had a community meeting in April. We're continuing to work with the applicant on the development application, and we're actually expecting a revised application shortly. And at such time as we can report to Community Council, there'll be a report, and at that time, that will be a statutory meeting under the Planning Act. So everybody who's submitted their name and address will receive notice of that report going to Community Council.
Thanks, Dan.
Oh, I should mention as well, sorry, Nilgan, that the application, when it comes in, the revised application, that will be available online and on the city's website at the Application Information Center. And that's accessible through the City of Toronto Planning website.
Appreciate that, Dan. MPP Styles, I see you wanted to jump in.
Sorry, and then maybe just because this is what I'm hearing from a lot of people in the community is some questions about whether that development and their participation in this project impacts the negotiations that they have or the talks they're having with the city, because at one point, of course, the provincial government had sort of proposed that private developers could build these stations and that they might be able to get, other things in exchange for that. So I just wanted to check in and see if you could explain to people where that piece of this is at.
Thanks for the question. I would suggest the answer is probably no. I mean, the fact is we are looking at the site differently because it is the location of a transit station. That's relevant from a planning point of view in terms of how we look at it. But in terms of sort of the built form and those sorts of things, we've had productive meetings with the applicant, and they've been dealing directly with us on that matter. We've looked at it in the same way we would any other development application.
Thank you.
Thank you. Colin, anything in the Zoom room?
Yeah, thanks, Elgin. We have a follow-up question from Mark about the pedestrian tunnel at Dora. So he says, love the pedestrian tunnel at Dora. Porosity is important between east and west sides, especially given the huge amount of construction planned along Stirling and Perth. I'm wondering if a tunnel ramp or pedestrian bridge could be considered. Both are less enclosed than the elevator-based systems used recently by MX down by Liberty Village. These enclosed bridges sometimes can be problematic. So just wondering if that's been explored.
Can you read that one more time for me? Sorry, and just maybe a little slower because I think there's a lot of detail in that question. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a detailed question. So just about, it says, love the pedestrian tunnel at Dora. Porosity is important between east and west sides, especially given the huge amount of construction planned. I'm wondering if a tunnel ramp or pedestrian bridge could be considered. Both are less enclosed than the elevator-based systems used recently by Metrolinx down by Liberty Village. These enclosed bridges and tunnels can become problematic, so something more open would be appreciated.
Okay, it sounds like we're about so in relation to the pedestrian tunnel, the question is about the vertical connection of elevators and stairs. Gulam or maybe Mary and MJ, is that something that you can address? You are muted.
Mary, do you want to take it?
Sure, I can. Yeah, in considering crossing at that location, we have given some consideration to both bridges and type of tunnel. Some of the factors to be considered there and worked with the adjacent developers is how any such structure might cause a barrier to those adjacent developments, particularly with regards to going underneath the rail corridor. Bridges, of course, would entail a larger or a longer vertical circulation pathway than going underneath the corridor. But it's a great question, and it's something that that the team are considering for crossing at that location.
Thanks, Mary. Joyce, I have a question here about what is the plan for fare integration? Is that something you can answer?
Yes, for sure. So Metrolinx has been working actively on these plans, and we have recently shared them with the fare and service integration table hosted by Minister Cho. We will continue to work with, obviously, the municipal partners and TTC and whatnot, but we're looking at a broader kind of regional context instead of a city's context.
So it's kind of a stay tuned for more information.
Correct, yes. Yeah, but we're actively working on it.
Okay, thank you. And Joyce, while you're on the line, I have a question here about why this location for the station. So why Bloor? Given that there are many options for transit on Bloor Street, just steps away, for example, the Up Express and the subway, why didn't Metrolinx and partners consider building the station a bit further north, say on DuPont? There is a nexus of high-density buildings there that would have benefited from closer transit options other than buses.
Okay, that's a great question. The station was selected based on the municipal and regional land use and transportation policy plan, and that's supported by the Toronto official plan. So the station site itself, it's a mixed-use area, which is slowly transforming from, the industrial use to residential use. So the site is surrounded by medium-density residential buildings and low-density employment commercial uses. There are also some vacant and unused properties. So, it would be great for future development. So that's why the station has been picked. For that. So if you go to the Metrolinx Engage website, you'll see a couple pieces of information. One is called the SmartTrack Preliminary Design Business Case, or PDBC. The other piece of information that you can get is the Dundas West Bloor Gateway Hub.
And what I'll do is, this question was asked in a written form. So when we post the answer below, I will link those documents in the answer. So
perfect.
Check back next week for those answers, and then you'll see the links to the documents that Joyce is referencing as well. I have a question here, and I think it's for the city, and I think maybe Greg, if you're on the line. Are you on the line, Greg?
I am.
Okay, hi. There's a question about the West Toronto rail path. When will the rail path extension actually see shovels in the ground?
That is not a question I can answer. I think there's I can see the deputy mayor who is all over this project, probably knows much more than I do.
I'm sorry to put you on the spot. I misdirected that. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
No, that's fine.
Thank you. So the city is working with Metrolinx to coordinate the work because of the fourth track. So this is actually, we're expecting the proposal for Metrolinx to do the work to go to their board in January. And so that we can go to tender, but it has to be coordinated with the other work, the track work, because we don't want to be doing track work before doing the path, because that will destroy the path. So we're hoping as soon as possible, if possible 2022, but the track work seems to be a bit delayed, so that it is connected. Those two pieces of work are connected.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for jumping in, and sorry, Greg. Gulam, this question is about accessibility. Will the station design take into account the needs of those with mobility issues? Will all entrances be accessible? Otherwise, those with issues might have long routes detouring to the accessible entrance.
Absolutely, that's a great question. The station entrances will be accessible if they will either have ramps or elevators available for those with accessibility needs to get to the platforms.
Thank you, Gulam. I'm going to check in with Colin one last time. Colin, any raised hands or questions in the Zoom room?
Yeah, thanks, Nilgan. Just a comment from Sylvan, just to follow up on his question about the 2 versus 1 tunnels. He just said, just to follow up on the tunnels, a southern tunnel is important for access to the northbound platform from Stirling, and a northern tunnel is important for access to the southern platform from Bloor. Otherwise, it would be necessary for customers to walk the entire length of the platform just to cross the tracks. So that was just a comment from Sylvan after his question about 1 versus 2 tunnels.
And I can appreciate that comment. I think everyone on the panel appreciate that comment. I think it's something, like I said, Joyce, I don't know if you want to add anything here.
No, I don't. I think, we've answered that question, so we'll definitely take this comment, in consideration, but, right now that's where we're at.
But thank you. I'm looking at the time. We've got 5 minutes left, so I think I'm going to stop there. I want to thank everyone who took time this evening to participate. So the residents down the line, our elected officials, and our panelists. I'll just check in with MVP Styles. Do you have any final words you'd like to share?
Well, I mean, just to say, I thank you to everybody who's here, who participated this evening, and I mean to all the Metrolinx and city staff too, for being here with all of us. I wasn't particularly surprised by a lot of those questions because they are the questions that we've been hearing in the community. But I also did hear, some new things, a little bit of a sense, I think, of where some of the community's priorities are. And I just want to thank the community again for coming out tonight. This will not be the last meeting for sure. And there are lots of ways to also work with myself and Deputy Mayor Bailao to express what your concerns are, ask us questions, and we can continue to work with Metrolinx and the city on those issues. So I always see this as an opportunity for community to get engaged, to get active, and to ensure our voices are heard. And I want to thank everybody who participated tonight for being part of that. And thank you.
Thank you, MVP. Deputy Mayor, did you want any closing remarks?
Just to thank everybody. And again, there's a great opportunity here. I think that, like I said, we've been separated, put inside these train lines. And I think with this expansion of transit, we're actually expanding it here in our communities, the connections that it can create, the transit that it can bring to the neighborhood. If done right, if we listen to the community, the people that live beside these tracks that see the potential, I think we can have a real great project that we can all be very proud of, that is going to benefit this community and the thousands and thousands of transit users that are going to use it across the lines as well. So hopefully we can continue to look at it as a transit project, but more than that, as a city building project.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So I'll just finish by saying we answered a lot of questions tonight. There was, I think, maybe just 1 or 2 questions in the written submissions we didn't get to. Please check back in about a week and a half's time, and we will definitely follow up in writing for those questions. You can also email Toronto West at metrolinx.com with your questions, or give us a call. So thank you again to our elected officials. Thank you to our panelists and our presenters. Thank you to our AV staff. And thank you to the participants who joined us to learn more about Bloor-Lansdowne this evening. And we look forward to our continued engagement with the community. So have a great evening, everybody. Good night.